Hello and welcome to our discussion as we are exploring the Enneagram tool and how that can help us to understand ourselves better and others that we want to be in relationship with. You know, Christianity is all about relationship. And so any tool that can enhance relationships is a good thing. So we're going to talk about number 2, the helper, in this session. And we've got some others here to discuss this. Of course, you've been seeing Emily every week as our resident expert here. I like introducing you that way, even though I know you don't like it. But I can tease every number except for one I learned.
And you can tease me.
And then we've got Pastor Kelly, as you know her well, I'm sure. Maybe some of you, probably most of you, but maybe not all of you know Coulter Davidson, who outside of Grace Place gets introduced for all kinds of impressive titles, but inside Grace Place gets introduced as Pastor Kelly's husband. That's right. And so I asked her to sit in too because he is 2. And there's all kinds of different 2s, but we got a strong and courageous 2 right here who is sometimes they think leaders, sometimes people get the idea that you got to be an 8 or a 7 or a 3 to be a leader. Every number can be a leader. And I see you as a leader in many ways. In fact, Coulter here led our whole capital campaign to get Grace Place built. And so he's a very strong leader. So we're going to start off with a scripture that you can discuss when we're finished with our conversation here. And that's in Luke chapter 10. It's a story of Martha and Mary. It says Jesus' disciples, verse 38, were on their way, and they came to the village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. Now, this home, there was 3 siblings, Martha, Mary, and Lazarus, who all lived in the same house. But it's interesting, it was Martha that opened her home. Martha had a gift of hospitality, which is often the case with 2s because they're so relational and they love to just be warm and inviting. And it says she had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said, but Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. Martha was busy. And think about it. How often do you get to feed Jesus, the Son of God? I think that's a pretty big privilege. So people are too hard on Martha sometimes. They're like, oh, Mary was so good sitting at his feet, listening to him. Well, yeah, that's a good thing to do, listen to Jesus. But Martha was doing a good thing too by being busy trying to prepare for Jesus. She's helping in that way. We're debating about whether she's a 2 or a 1 or a 2 with a strong 1 wing, because not only is she distracted by a lot of detail, she's also concerned that it's not fair. That sounds a little more like a 1. It's not fair that she is doing all the work and Mary is getting to enjoy just sitting at the feet of Jesus. So she comes in and expresses that, and she's like one of the only people in the whole Bible who tells Jesus what to do. She says, tell her to help me. So I love the fact that Martha was so diligent about helping, but sometimes people who are helpers can be so busy helping that they miss their own needs. And I think Jesus was saying to her, I really appreciate what you're doing, but what Mary's doing, sitting at my feet and listening to me, is fulfilling a need also. And so don't miss that. It's one take on that story anyway. So we're going to talk about the 2, and why don't we start with what they should know about themselves.
Okay, I've tried to narrow it down to something.
Okay, pay
small.
attention. This is what you should know about yourself.
So 2s tend to take everything personally. And so a 2 needs to recognize that not everything is personal. And especially as we're going through Enneagram and learning just about each different number, that because you want to help people, remembering that perhaps somebody's need to be independent or somebody's need to be private is actually a way that you can help them, because that is their need. So a 2 wanting to provide for people's needs sometimes might look like not letting them be independent, like pushing to help a lot, or not wanting them to be private because you want it to be a personal connection. So if a 2 can start to be aware of certain numbers and certain people in their life, it's not actually personal if they don't want your help. But just being there, available, is a way that you can help them without pushing yourself into certain numbers in a way to not take it as personally.
Does that resonate at all with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I can see that a lot with kids, and we've got three daughters, and they each are a very different type, and have their own needs, and I can see that where I definitely try to push in a lot, and probably to a fault, whether that's with my wife or with the kids. Pushing in is not always what's needed, so I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that feels intimate to you,
Right.
having that connection, but it can feel like too much.
To someone
For
else.
someone
I don't know.
else.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like smothering them.
I guess so.
Twos are the most relational of them all, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
So, we started with the gut body triad with the 8s and the 9s and the 1s, and now we're moving into the heart triad with the 2s, 3s, and 4s. And that means of all the numbers, those 3 are the most relational, and maybe 2's really the most relational. I love that about Coulter, by the way. I love that about the fact that you love community and you care about relationships. And so I was just thinking in preparation for this, whenever we run into each other, it seems like Coulter will say, "How are you doing?" And you say, "What's strange about that?" Everybody says that. But he actually acts like he means it. So he'll say, "How are you doing?" I'll say, "Fine." And I'm ready to move on. And he'll say, "Yeah. So what's going on?" And I'm like, so I think you really are asking that because you care. And I appreciate that because not everybody does.
Right.
That's a huge value add to have relational people in your life.
Yeah.
And I do care.
I know you do.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
Yeah. Which is helpful too with me as a 9, because my tendency would be to just withdraw into myself or physically just withdraw from everything. And although it can be frustrating sometimes, his pushing into that, it also makes me have to stretch and grow and deal with things that maybe I wouldn't, or share things I maybe wouldn't, because of having him be that person.
It can be frustrating sometimes too, though. Like we were talking about it before this, just when you have a conversation with somebody, my expectation is that you would follow up and that you'd know more about what's going on. So, you have a phone call with a family member or friend or whatever, and I ask some more information about what you guys talked about. There's nothing there. And to me, it's like, why didn't you ask?
How are they doing?
How are they
How are they
doing? Why?
Yeah.
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 So what's another
Another thing.
tip?
Okay, another thing is because they are so good at loving people, they're really good at predicting people's needs. They're good at digging deeper, asking more questions. They want to know how best to love their loved ones. And so often if they're not in tune with their own needs, they can start to assume that that's the prescription of love and like put a description on how they feel they need to be loved also. And so it might sound like if they really loved me, they would be doing this. If they really loved me, they would notice that I need this, because it is hard for them to speak up about their own needs. And so they might miss ways that different numbers are actually loving them because it doesn't look just like the way that
we
they
expect.
would love. Yeah. And because they're so good at it, people probably should be loving them that way. But you might miss little things that mean love in different ways.
You love to help and you're always eager to serve, volunteer. You're like, everybody should be serving all the time, right?
That's fun.
I mean, the church would crash without twos. We need everybody, but Coulter's like, if there's a need, you're signing up. I mean, you'd sign up for practically
I don't know
every
why you
service.
wouldn't. Yeah.
To serve in multiple positions within the same service has actually happened, where before service, he'll serve at the Connect Center, but then he knows there's a need in Tribe with the 4th and 5th graders, so he'll go in there and serve, and then be out back at the Connect Center when service is out to serve there, and
That's
that's
awesome.
not.
But twos have to realize they got to take care of themselves too, right?
Right.
You got to
He
get in
doesn't
there
think
for the
so.
message. Because
Right.
Mary was in for the message and Martha was missing the message.
Yeah.
And if you're not careful, twos, you'd be serving in the 8 o'clock, the 9:30, and the 11. and not taking care of yourself.
Yeah, that's probably true.
But we need you. We just don't want to use you and abuse you.
That kind of leads into what we should know about them is that it is hard for them to say no. And if there is a need, they might do it even if they don't want to do it. I personally think that's helpful to know because I assume that they want to. And it's really up to your two to decide. I mean, it's not your job to tell them when they should or shouldn't. That's up to them to figure out, their limits, but knowing that they might say yes when they don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, why do you think I'm here?
Because you needed a hug, because you're
Oh.
relational. Okay, that's my one hug for the week. Yeah, that's good. I think about you. I didn't know you were a helper, but it just made so much sense when I started looking at you through that lens. And I'm sure everybody who attends this church at one time or another has seen that big blood donation truck parked out front.
Hopefully.
Well, you're the one that brings it over and over and over again. Why?
Because there's a need. We don't have one in Berthoud, so I saw that there was a need. That why not do a blood drive here? And we've got the opportunity, and we've got a lot of people, so why not do a blood donation?
And that blood is going to probably help somebody.
Yeah, it's going to help people. It's going to
And
up to 3 lives.
really,
That's what they say. Every
For one
donation.
donation, up
Every
to 3
donation.
lives.
Up to 3. Yeah.
Cool.
thank you for
There you
doing
go.
that for years.
Now you
You've been
know.
doing that.
Yeah.
And one idea that we've dreamed about before together was this idea of starting a brewery.
That's right.
And
Still a dream.
Still a dream.
Yeah.
And you, can we talk about the name that you were thinking about, or is that a secret?
Yeah. No, that's all right.
Okay.
So,
Well, tell them.
altruism.
Ale.
With altruism.
Ism.
So like altruism, but also ale because it's beer.
So the idea it would be more than brewing and selling and drinking beer,
Right.
but that there would be a donation going from every beer sold to causes.
Yep. Yeah. So the idea actually would be that it would be a nonprofit brewery, and that it would be kind of a funnel of resources to organizations that need that.
And a lot of them are helping people.
Yeah, it'd be nonprofit organizations that would be people focused.
So so many lights started coming on, thinking about knowing you for a long time, but then seeing you through this lens. That's wonderful
Yeah.
that we would be doing something like that to help people. What else should we know about them?
We should know that it is hard for them to ask for help. So even though they're very quick to step in and help other people, they might have needs that aren't being met because it's hard for them to ask. So we can be proactive and ask them what they need.
What do you need, man?
What do you need? What do you
Coffee's almost empty.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get you something. Do you think that's have you been conscious about that?
No, I mean that's not. I think that again
could be one that
that goes
doesn't.
back to the reason for it is that's not my thought process, but I'm sure it's there. I'm sure you've seen that where it's hard for me to ask for that.
You just want it to happen without having to.
That's right.
Ask
it
for
should
it.
because that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You
that's
should want to help me.
Right.
with
and that can be a
everything.
struggle
Yeah.
for twos because they just assume that everyone else would see it the same way. I think that's every number, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty much. I
Yeah.
mean, unless we get more educated about this, we assume everybody sees the world through our filter.
Right.
Why wouldn't people notice that you need something, even if you don't ask for
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I like doing this series. It's been
Yeah.
very eye opening.
It has been.
Yeah.
Well, what else should we say before we let the gangs start discussing?
Should we talk about how to love
How to
them?
love.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm
so
listening. I'm listening.
This is for you.
Take
Okay.
notes.
you're going to want to acknowledge their contribution verbally. So make sure you pay attention to what they're doing and then acknowledge it because we take them for granted a lot.
Okay, I'm going to do it right now. So we went on a big, epic motorcycle ride together, and you're a great motorcycle rider. You could easily be out front all the time, but there were a number of times where it almost felt like you were intentionally in the back on really tough stretches in case somebody needed help. I don't know if it was, but you were there. You were the one that lifted up more motorcycles than anybody else, and I want to acknowledge that and thank you. And also tell you that I'd probably still be up there somewhere on a mountain pass without you, because you helped repair my motorcycle and another buddy's. So, thanks.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thanks for
Glad
making
to-
me
glad to
coffee
be there.
every
Now I
single
feel like I
morning
need to do it for you.
of my entire
He makes you
life.
coffee?
Every morning.
Aw.
Oh,
Makes
my
it, fixes it up
Setting the
just
bar
how
high
he
there,
knows
bud.
I like it.
It's got to be right.
It's got to be right.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So now we're back to how the helpers show love. But how
Oh,
do we show
oh,
love
yeah.
to them?
Well, I was
Right.
saying thank you for.
Right.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, by
Okay, thank
appreciating
you.
it,
Yeah, it
and
was good.
noticing it.
It's good.
Okay.
And then the last one, which there's plenty more, is just to be affectionate with them. I don't know if every
Do you like
Tuesday.
that hug?
I did. That was a nice hug.
Definitely check in always with all of these with your twos, because they might have other things they really want, but most twos tend to be physically affectionate and appreciate when their loved ones love on them.
Alrighty.
I can relate
Yeah.
to that.
Well, I think we've primed the pump for a good discussion, and appreciate you joining us, Coulter, as well as both of you. So you guys have a good discussion, and let's focus on seeing the best in each other and how we can really love each other. God bless you.